Admiral Park Do-hyun stood alone in the dark corridor of the TSS Horizon. His fingers touched the cold metal wall where thousands of names were carved. These were the names of the dead, soldiers who gave their lives fighting the enemy. His eyes found one name among the many. Park Yuna, his daughter. 7 years had passed since he ordered her name to be put on this wall. 7 years since the siege of Callisto Station. 7 years since he made the hardest choice of his life. Do-hyun closed his eyes and remembered that terrible day. The Victoria had come with a fleet so large it blocked out the stars. Their ships were like living creatures, made of metal and flesh twisted together. They did not come to talk. They came to take. Callisto Station was a small medical outpost near Jupiter. Only 300 people lived there. Most of them were doctors and nurses. Yuna was one of them. She was 24 years old, a combat medic. She had her mother's kind eyes and her father's stubborn heart. When the Victoria attacked, Do-hyun commanded the rescue fleet. He watched from his ship as the enemy tore through their defenses like paper. His soldiers fought hard, but there were too many enemies. The station was falling apart. Fire and smoke filled every room. He had to make a choice. Save the ships he had left or lose everything trying to rescue a dying station. Yuna was still inside. She had refused to leave. There were wounded soldiers who could not walk. She stayed to help them. Do-hyun gave the order to retreat. He remembered screaming into the radio, begging her to get to an escape pod. But the line went silent. The station exploded in a ball of fire. Nothing survived. They found her dog tags floating in the wreckage 3 days later. No body, just a small piece of metal with her name on it. Do-hyun kept those dog tags in his pocket. He touched them now as he stood before the wall. They were warm from his body heat. Sometimes he pretended that warmth came from her. A voice broke through his thoughts. Commander Baek Ji-soo walked up behind him. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She had served under Do-hyun for 10 years. She knew him better than anyone. "Admiral, we have a situation," Ji-soo said. Her voice was careful. Something was wrong. Do-hyun turned away from the wall. "What is it?" "A Victoria ship is approaching. They sent a message. They want to talk." Do-hyun felt his blood run cold. The Victoria never talked. In 20 years of war, they had never once asked for peace. They only took. They only destroyed. They only consumed. "It could be a trap," he said. "Command thinks so too. But they ordered us to let them come. They said any chance of peace must be explored." Do-hyun did not believe in peace with the Victoria. He had seen what they did to captured humans. They did not kill cleanly. They took people apart and put them back together wrong. They mixed human flesh with alien technology. They turned people into monsters, but orders were orders. He nodded slowly. "Prepare the docking bay. Full security. I want weapons on every corner." Ji-soo saluted and walked away. 1 hour later, Do-hyun stood on the observation deck above the main docking bay. Below him, 50 armed soldiers waited in formation. Their guns were ready. Their faces were hard. The Victoria shuttle entered through the massive doors. It looked like a giant insect made of dark purple metal. Organic tubes ran along its surface like veins. It made a sound like breathing as it landed. The door opened with a wet hiss. The Victoria delegation stepped out. There were 5 of them. They were tall, almost 3 meters high. Their bodies were covered in shiny shells that changed color in the light. They had 4 arms and 2 legs. Their faces had no eyes, only smooth plates with small holes. Their mouths were full of clicking parts that moved constantly. Do-hyun had killed many of these creatures. He felt nothing but hatred when he looked at them dot, but then he saw something that made his heart stop. Behind the aliens walked a human woman. She wore long robes in Victory colors, dark purple and silver. Her hair was completely white, like fresh snow. Strange silver lines ran across her skin, climbing up her neck and across her face like tree branches. She walked with confidence, her head held high. Her face was older now, thinner, but Daryun knew that face. He had watched that face grow from a baby to a child to a young woman. He had kissed that face goodnight 1,000 times. It was Yuna. His daughter was alive. Daryun's legs stopped working. He grabbed the railing to keep from falling. His vision went dark at the edges. He could not breathe. Jisoo caught his arm. "Admiral? What is happening? Are you sick?" He could not answer. He could only stare at the woman below. She was looking around the docking bay with curious eyes. Then she looked up. Their eyes met. She smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old pain. "That is my daughter," Daryun whispered. His voice sounded like it came from far away. Jisoo looked down at the woman and back at him. "That is impossible. Park Yuna died at Callisto. We have her death certificate. We had a funeral. We never found her body." The words hung in the air like smoke. Jisoo's face went pale as she understood. "Oh no." Daryun pushed himself away from the railing. His legs felt like water, but he forced them to move. He walked to the elevator. Jisoo followed close behind. "Admiral, wait. We do not know what she is now. The Vectari do things to people. She might not be human anymore. She might be a weapon. She is my daughter. She was your daughter 7 years ago. A lot can change in 7 years." Daryun stopped walking. He turned to face Jisoo. His eyes were wet. "I left her behind. I gave the order that killed her. Except she did not die. She survived, and the enemy took her. Whatever she is now, I made her that way." He continued walking. The elevator took him down to the docking bay. The doors opened, and he stepped out into a room full of tension. Soldiers on one side, aliens on the other. And in the middle, his daughter, Yuna, watched him approach. The silver lines on her skin seemed to glow faintly in the harsh light. Up close, he could see that her eyes had changed. They had small flecks of silver in them now, like tiny stars. She bowed her head slightly. "Hello, Father." Her voice was the same. That hurt more than anything. The voice of the little girl who used to ask him for bedtime stories. How? It was the only word he could manage. "I survived. They found me in the wreckage. They saved me. Saved you?" Anger crept into his voice. "They are monsters. They eat people. They destroy worlds." Yuna's expression did not change. "They are not what you think they are. None of this is what you think it is. I came here to show you the truth. To stop this war. To bring peace." Daryun looked at the aliens standing behind her. They watched him with their eyeless faces. He felt their attention like insects crawling on his skin. "Peace," he repeated. The word tasted like poison. After everything they have done? After everyone they have killed? Yuna stepped closer. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool, but the touch was gentle, familiar. "Dad," she said softly, using the name she used as a child. "I know you are angry. I know you are scared. But please listen to me. Please, let me explain. I did not come all this way to hurt you. I came because I still love you. Because I want to save you. I want to save everyone." Daryun looked into his daughter's strange silver eyes. He saw pain there. He saw hope. He saw 7 years of suffering he could not imagine. He did not know if he could trust her. He did not know if this was a trick. But he knew one thing for certain. He could not walk away from her. Not again. Yuna remembered the moment she died. The ceiling of Callisto Station came down like the fist of an angry god. Metal beams and broken glass fell all around her. She pushed a wounded soldier into an escape pod and hit the launch button. The pod shot away into space. The soldier would live. Then the beam hit her. She did not feel pain at first. Only pressure. A terrible weight on her chest and legs. She tried to breathe, but her lungs would not work. Blood filled her mouth. The lights went out, and she was alone in the darkness. She thought about her father. She wondered if he was looking for her. She hoped he would not blame himself. Then the aliens came. She expected them to kill her. The Vectari were supposed to be mindless killers. Monsters that ate human flesh and wore human skin. Every soldier knew the stories. If you were captured, you saved the last bullet for yourself. But Yuna had no gun. She had no strength left to fight. She could only lie there and wait for death. The Vectari did not kill her. They picked her up with their many arms and carried her to their ship. They put her on a table and started working on her broken body. She screamed until her voice gave out. Then she slept. When she woke up, everything was different. The first thing she noticed was that she could breathe again. Her crushed ribs had been fixed. Her torn lungs had been rebuilt. The Vectari had saved her life. The second thing she noticed was the silver lines on her arms. Thin threads of alien technology running under her skin. They had put something inside her. Something that made her stronger, faster, and harder to kill. She was terrified. She waited for the alien mind to take over. She waited to become a puppet, a slave, a monster wearing human skin. But days passed, and she remained herself. Her thoughts were still her own. Her memories were still clear. She was still Park Yuna, daughter of an admiral, medic who believed in saving lives. The Vectari watched her with great interest. They had never seen a human like her before. Most humans who survived the integration process lost their minds. They became empty shells, controlled by the collective. But Yuna was different. Her will was too strong. Her sense of self was too deep. They called her the Unbroken. Over the following months, Yuna learned their language. It was not made of words like human language. It was made of sounds, smells, and movements. Clicks and whistles and chemical signals. It took her a long time to understand even basic things. But slowly, she started to see the truth. The Vectari were not a single mind. They were not a hive controlled by one queen. They were a society, just like humans. They had different groups with different beliefs. Some wanted war. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to destroy all other life in the galaxy. Others wanted to learn from it. The faction that captured Yuna belonged to the second group. They were called the Seekers. They believed that the Vectari had grown sick from too much war. They believed that consuming other species was making them weaker, not stronger. They wanted to find a new way. Yuna became their project. Their hope? Proof that humans and Vectari could exist together without destruction. They taught her everything. Their history, their science, their art. She learned that they had once been peaceful creatures, living on a world of great beauty. Then they discovered other intelligent species in the galaxy. Fear drove them to war. War drove them to evolve. Evolution made them into the monsters they had become. But not all of them wanted to stay monsters. The leader of the Seekers was called Grandmother. She was very old, one of the few Vectari who remembered the time before war. She saw something special in Yuna, a fire that refused to go out. "You hate us," Grandmother said one day, her clicking voice translated by the silver threads in Yuna's brain. "That is good. Hate keeps you strong. But can you look past your hate? Can you see what we truly are?" Yuna did not answer for a long time. She sat in her small room on the Vectari ship, looking at the stars through a tiny window. Those same stars where her people were fighting and dying. "I see fear," she finally said. "You are afraid of us." "Yes, humans are strange, You are soft and weak, but you never break. We have conquered 1,000 species. All of them gave up eventually, but not humans. You keep fighting. You keep dying. And still you refuse to surrender. It terrifies us. Yuna almost laughed. Humans were terrified of the Vectari. Vectari were terrified of humans. Both sides killing each other because they were too scared to stop. It was so stupid. So pointless. So incredibly sad. That was the day Yuna decided to become a bridge. It took 5 more years of work. She had to prove herself to the Seekers again and again. She had to learn their politics, their secrets, their weaknesses. She had to convince them that peace was possible. She also had to survive. The Vectari hardliners, the faction that wanted endless war, tried to kill her many times. They saw her as a threat to everything they believed. She carried scars from their attacks. Some of those scars would never heal, but she kept going. Because every time she wanted to give up, she thought about her father. She thought about all the families on both sides who had lost someone they loved. She thought about children growing up in a universe of nothing but war. Someone had to stop it. Someone had to be the first to reach out. If not her, then who? Now she sat in a small conference room on her father's ship. He sat across from her, his face hard with anger and confusion. Behind him stood Commander Jisoo, watching Yuna like she was a bomb about to explode. The room was quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's engines. "You cannot be my daughter," Do-hyun finally said. "My daughter would never work with those things. My daughter would rather die." Yuna felt the words like a knife in her heart. But she kept her face calm. She had expected this. "I almost did die. Many times. But dying would have been easy. Living was harder. Changing was hardest of all. Changing into what? Look at yourself. Look at what they did to you." Yuna touched the silver lines on her cheek. "These do not change who I am. They only help me survive. They help me talk to them, understand them. I am still me, Father. I still remember everything." She started talking about their old life. The small house on Earth where she grew up. The garden her mother planted before she died. The way Do-hyun used to carry Yuna on his shoulders when she was little. The lullaby he sang when she had nightmares. She hummed the tune softly. It was a simple melody. An old Korean folk song about the moon and the stars. Do-hyun's hard expression cracked. His eyes became wet. He looked away quickly, trying to hide his emotion. "I sang that song at your funeral," he whispered. "I know. I wish I could have heard it." Silence filled the room again. Jisoo stepped forward. "Admiral, we should be careful. This could be a trick. The Vectari might be using her to get close to you." Yuna looked at the commander. "You are smart to be suspicious. I would be too. But I have proof of what I say. The Vectari are not united. The faction that wants peace has grown strong enough to make this offer real. But we must act fast. The hardliners are preparing to attack again. If we do not make peace now, the war will become worse than ever." She reached into her robe and pulled out a small device. It looked like a crystal ball filled with swirling light. "This contains information about Vectari military positions, communication codes, and fleet movements. I am giving it to you as a gift, a sign of trust. If I am lying, this will be useless. If I am telling the truth, this will save thousands of human lives." She placed the device on the table and pushed it toward her father. Do-hyun stared at it. Then he looked up at his daughter. His face was a storm of emotions. Pain, hope, fear, love. All of them fighting for control. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you risk so much? Why would you come back?" Yuna smiled sadly. "Because I never stopped being your daughter. Because I never forgot what you taught me." You said a good soldier does not fight for victory. A good soldier fights for the people who cannot fight for themselves. That is what I am doing, Father. I am fighting for everyone who is tired of this war. She reached across the table and took his hand. Please, help me end it. The Peace Summit was held on Station Zero. It was an old human base floating in the empty space between territories. No one had lived there for years. It was perfect for the meeting. Neutral ground. A place where both sides could feel equally uncomfortable. Yuna watched the delegations arrive through the station's dusty windows. Human ships came from the east, sharp and silver, built for war. Vectari ships came from the west, dark and organic, pulsing with strange life. They circled each other like animals meeting for the first time. Admiral Park Do-hyun led the human delegation. He wore his best uniform, covered with medals from 20 years of fighting. His face was serious, but Yuna could see the hope hiding in his eyes. He wanted this to work. He was afraid to believe it could. The Vectari delegation was led by High Ambassador Mora. She was one of the oldest Seekers, a creature of great wisdom and patience. Unlike most Vectari, she had chosen to keep a smaller, less frightening form. She was only 2 meters tall, and her shell was a soft blue color. She clicked gently when she spoke, almost like singing. Yuna stood between them. Her role was to translate not just words, but meanings. Humans and Vectari thought differently. They saw the universe in different ways. A simple greeting could be misunderstood. A small gesture could cause great offense. She had to catch every mistake before it became a disaster. The first day was difficult. Both sides were full of suspicion. The humans kept their hands near their weapons. The Vectari kept their chemical glands ready to release fear signals. The air was thick with tension. But slowly, Yuna guided them through the storm. She explained human customs to the Vectari. She explained Vectari psychology to the humans. She reminded both sides why they were here. Not to win, not to defeat, but to find a way forward. By the end of the first day, they had agreed on a ceasefire. No more attacks while the talks continued. It was a small step, but it felt like a miracle. Commander Jisoo approached Yuna that night in the station's empty cafeteria. The commander still did not trust her, but her eyes had softened slightly. "You are good at this," Jisoo said, sitting across from her. "Talking, bringing people together." Yuna shrugged. "I have many years to learn. When you are a prisoner, you have a lot of time to think. Were you a prisoner? Or a guest?" It was a fair question. Yuna considered her answer carefully. "Both. Neither. I was something new. Something they did not know how to treat. Some of them wanted to study me. Some wanted to kill me. Some wanted to be my friend. It was confusing for everyone." Jisoo nodded slowly. "I lost my brother at Callisto. Same battle where you were taken. He was a pilot. His ship was destroyed by a Vectari beam. There was nothing left to bury." Yuna felt the weight of those words. "I am sorry. Do not apologize. It was war. People die in war." Jisoo paused. "But if this peace works, maybe no more people have to die. Maybe no more sisters have to cry at empty coffins." She stood up and walked away. At the door, she stopped and looked back. "For what it is worth, I hope you are real. I hope you are not a trick. The Admiral needs to believe his daughter survived. He needs something good to come from all this pain." Then she was gone. The next 3 days went better. The delegations began to trust each other, at least a little. They argued about territories, about prisoners, about trade. Normal things. The things that enemies discuss when they are learning to be something else. Do-hyun spent his evenings with Yuna. They walked the old corridors of Station Zero, talking about memories. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they cried. 7 years of separation had created a wall between them, but brick by brick, they were taking it down. Yuna told him about her time with the Vektari, the horrors she had seen, the friends she had made, the many times she almost died. Do-hyun told her about the war from the human side, the battles won and lost, the soldiers who served under him, the guilt that never went away. "I dream about Callisto," he admitted one night. They stood at a window, watching the stars. "I see the station falling. I hear your voice on the radio, and I wake up screaming." Yuna took his hand. "I do not blame you. You made the right choice. If you had stayed, everyone would have died. The soldiers I saved, the ones in that escape pod, they survived because you gave us time to fight. But I left you behind, and I survived. Here I am, still alive, still your daughter. The universe is strange, Father. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes." On the 5th day, the treaty was almost complete. Both sides had made compromises. Both sides were unhappy about some parts. That meant it was fair. A perfect agreement would have made everyone suspicious. The signing ceremony was scheduled for the next morning. Yuna allowed herself to feel hope. After so many years of work, peace was finally within reach. Then everything went wrong. The attack came without warning. Explosions ripped through the station's outer walls. Alarms screamed. Gravity flickered on and off. Soldiers on both sides grabbed their weapons. Not knowing who to shoot, Yuna ran toward the main conference room where the delegations had gathered. Smoke filled the corridors. The floor was covered with debris. She passed bodies, human and Vektari lying together in death. She found her father in the conference room, organizing the defense. His face was covered with blood from a cut on his forehead, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "What is happening?" She shouted over the noise. "Human extremists. They call themselves the Pure Blood Brigade. They would rather die than make peace with the enemy." He spat the word enemy with bitter anger. "They do not speak for us, but they have weapons, and they want to kill everyone here." More explosions shook the station. Walls collapsed. The lights went out, replaced by dim emergency red. The Pure Blood Brigade burst into the room from 3 directions. They wore black armor and carried heavy rifles. Their leader was a huge man with scars covering his face. He walked like someone who had nothing left to lose. "No peace with monsters," he roared. "Death to all traitors." His soldiers opened fire on the Vektari delegation. High Ambassador Mora tried to shield her people with her own body. A bullet hit her chest. Then another. Then 3 more. She fell to the ground, blue blood spreading beneath her. Yuna screamed. She ran toward Mora, ignoring the bullets flying past her head. She did not care about her own safety. She only knew that if Mora died, peace would die with her. The fighting continued around her. Human loyalists clashed with the extremists. Vektari soldiers fought alongside their former enemies against a common threat. It was chaos. It was madness. Yuna reached Mora and pressed her hands against the wounds. The ambassador's life was fading fast. Normal medicine could not save her. Human doctors did not understand Vektari biology. But Yuna was not normal anymore. The silver threads in her body could do more than translate languages. They could connect with Vektari systems. They could share energy, information, even life itself. She had never tried anything like this before. She did not know if it would work. She did not know if she would survive. She closed her eyes and reached inside herself for power she did not fully understand. The silver lines on her skin began to glow. A bright white light, like starfire. She felt her consciousness expand, reaching out to touch Mora's dying mind. The ambassador was falling into darkness. Yuna grabbed her and pulled. Energy flowed from Yuna into Mora. Life force, vital spark, whatever it was that kept beings alive. She gave everything she had. She felt herself growing weaker, colder, smaller. But she did not stop. Mara's wounds began to close. Her breathing steadied. Her heart began to beat again. Yuna collapsed. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was her father's face, streaked with tears, calling her name. Yuna floated in darkness for a long time. She was not awake and not asleep. She existed somewhere in between, in a place where time did not move and thoughts came slowly like fish swimming through deep water. Sometimes she heard voices. Her father talking to her in soft tones. Doctors arguing about treatments they did not understand. Commander Jisoo reading reports out loud, pretending Yuna could hear. And strange clicking sounds, the Vectari speaking prayers in their own language. She tried to wake up many times, but her body was too weak. She had given too much of herself to save Mora. The silver threads in her skin had dimmed to almost nothing. Her heart barely beat. Her lungs barely moved. The doctor said she might never wake up. They said she was in a coma that could last forever. They said her brain was shutting down. But they did not understand what Yuna was. On the 9th day, she opened her eyes. The room was white and bright. Medical machines beeped softly around her bed. Tubes carried fluids into her arms. A window showed the stars outside. And there, asleep in a chair beside her bed, was her father. He looked terrible. His uniform was wrinkled. His face was covered with stubble. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. He had not left her side for even 1 hour. Yuna tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. She managed only a small sound. Like the cry of a baby bird. It was enough. Do-hyun's eyes flew open. He saw her looking at him, and his face transformed. All the worry and fear melted away. Pure joy took its place. "Yuna," he whispered. "You are awake." He grabbed her hand and held it tight. Tears ran down his cheeks. He did not try to hide them. "I thought I lost you again," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I would have to bury you for real this time." Yuna squeezed his hand weakly. "Still here," she managed to say. Her voice sounded like gravel. "Still stubborn." He laughed. It was a wet, broken laugh, but it was real. "You get that from me." The doctors came running when they heard the news. They checked her vital signs, shined lights in her eyes, asked her questions. They were amazed. They called it a miracle. Why Yuan knew it was not a miracle. It was simply the will to live. She had too much left to do. She could not rest yet. Over the following days, she slowly grew stronger. She learned what happened after she collapsed. The attack on Station Zero had failed. The Pure Blood Brigade was defeated by the combined force of loyal humans and Vectari soldiers fighting together. Most of the extremists were captured. Their leader was dead. High Ambassador Mora had survived thanks to Yuna's sacrifice. When she recovered, she spoke to the Vectari collective about what she had seen. A human had risked her life to save a Vectari. A human had chosen peace over survival. This was something they had never witnessed before. The hardliners lost their power after that day. How could they argue that humans were evil when a human had died to save their ambassador? How could they demand war when peace had already begun? The treaty was signed. Not at Station Zero, but at a new location chosen together by both sides. The war that had lasted 20 years was finally over. Yuna watched the news reports from her hospital bed. Human and Vectari leaders shaking hands. Ships from both sides escorting each other home. Prisoners being released to their families. It was everything she had worked for. Everything she had dreamed about. But she did not feel happy. She felt empty. Tired in a way that sleep could not fix. Her father visited her every day. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes They just sat together in silence. The wall between them was almost gone now. They were father and daughter again, connected by something stronger than blood. One evening, Do-hyun brought something special. A small box wrapped in old cloth. "Your mother's things," he explained, placing the box on her lap. "I saved them after she died. I was going to give them to you when you graduated from the academy. But then Callisto happened, and I thought I would never have the chance." Yuna opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were small treasures. A necklace with a jade pendant. A photograph of her mother as a young woman. A letter, yellow with H, written in her mother's careful handwriting. The letter was addressed to Yuna. Her mother had written it when Yuna was still a baby. Knowing she would not live to see her daughter grow up, Yuna read the letter slowly, tears falling on the paper. "My dearest daughter," it began. "If you are reading this, I'm already gone. But I want you to know that I loved you more than anything in the universe. Whatever happens, whatever you become, remember that you carry my heart with you. Be brave, be kind, and never give up hope." Yuna held the letter to her chest and cried. Her father put his arm around her, and they wept together, crying for everything they had lost, crying for everything they had found. When the tears finally stopped, Yuna looked at her father. There were things they needed to say, hard things that had waited too long. "I need to ask you something," she said. "About Callisto. About the day you left me behind." Do-hyun's face grew pale. He looked away. "I have asked myself the same question 1,000 times. What if I had stayed? What if I had fought harder? What if I had found another way?" There was no other way. You know that. Knowing does not make it easier. Every night, I see that station falling. Every night, I hear the silence when your radio went dead. Every night, I give that order again, and every night I hate myself for it. Yuna took his hand. "Father, listen to me. What happened to me was terrible. The things I went through, the pain I felt, I would not wish on anyone. But I survived. I changed. I became something that could bridge two worlds. None of that would have happened if you had made a different choice." She paused, gathering her thoughts. The universe does not care about fairness. Bad things happen to good people. Good things come from terrible pain. All we can do is take what we are given and make something meaningful from it. You gave me a chance to live, even if you did not know it at the time. I am not angry. I am grateful." Do-hyun stared at her. The guilt that had lived in his eyes for 7 years began to fade. Not completely. Some wounds never fully heal. But the weight became lighter. "When did you become so wise?" he asked softly. Yuna smiled. "I had a good teacher. A man who taught me that a true soldier fights for those who cannot fight for themselves." He hugged her then, carefully, because she was still weak, but tightly enough to show that he would never let go again. They stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, healing together. When Yuna was finally strong enough to leave the hospital, she faced a new challenge. Both the human government and the Victari Collective wanted her to become their liaison, the official bridge between two species learning to live together. It was a huge responsibility. She would have to leave her old life behind completely. She would belong to neither side, living in the space between. It would be lonely. It would be difficult. She said yes without hesitation. Her father understood. He did not ask her to stay. He knew this was her purpose, the reason she had survived everything. "I am proud of you," he said on the day she left. They stood in the docking bay where she had first returned. That day that now seemed so long ago. "Your mother would be proud too." Yuna touched the jade pendant around her neck. "Will you come visit?" "Every chance I get." He smiled. "Someone has to make sure you are eating properly." She laughed and hugged him one last time. Then she walked onto her ship and flew toward the future she had created. 5 years had passed since the war ended. The galaxy was different now. Not perfect, not peaceful in every corner, but alive with possibility. Trade routes connected human and Vectari worlds. Scientists from both species worked together in laboratories floating among the stars. Children grew up learning that the universe was bigger than fear. Park Yuna had become a legend. The Unbroken. The Bridge. The woman who walked between worlds and taught them to see each other. She traveled constantly, solving problems, building connections, preventing the small conflicts that could grow into new wars. It was exhausting work. Some days, she wanted to give up. Some days, she felt like she was pushing a rock up a mountain that never ended. But then she would meet a family reunited after years of separation, or see a Vectari child playing with human friends. And she would remember why she kept going. On the anniversary of the peace treaty, she finally took a break. She traveled to a special place, a world called New Dawn, built together by humans and Vectari as a symbol of their new future. Her father was waiting for her there. Admiral Park. Do-hyun was not an admiral anymore. He had retired 2 years ago, tired of politics and meetings and paperwork. He said he had spent enough of his life giving orders. Now he wanted to grow things instead. He lived in a small house at the edge of New Dawn's first settlement. The house looked out over green fields where farmers grew food for both species. Behind it was a garden, carefully tended, full of flowers from Earth. Yuna found him on his knees in the dirt, planting seeds. His hair had gone completely white now, and his back was bent from years of carrying heavy burdens. But his eyes were clear and happy. He had found peace. "You look old," Yuna said, walking up behind him. He looked over his shoulder and grinned. "You look tired." "I am tired. But I promised I would come for the anniversary." He stood up slowly, brushing dirt from his hands. They embraced, holding each other tight. 5 years had not changed this. They still met as often as they could. They still talked for hours about everything and nothing. Do-hyun led her inside and made tea. They sat by the window, watching the sun set over the fields. The sky turned orange, then purple, then deep blue filled with stars. "I got a message from the Settlement Council," he said, sipping his tea. "They want to name the Central Plaza after me." Yuna smiled. "You deserve it. You did more to make this peace work than anyone. When the other admirals wanted to fight, you convinced them to try diplomacy first. I do not want a monument." He shook his head. "Monuments are for dead people. I am not dead yet. Then what do you want?" He pointed out the window at the stars beginning to appear. "I want that. I want children who have never seen war. I want people who have never lost someone they love to violence. I want the galaxy to forget what a battle looks like." Yuna was quiet for a moment. She looked at the stars too. Those same stars that had once marked battlefields. Fleet engagements that cost millions of lives. Worlds burned and broken. All of it seemed so far away now. "We cannot forget," she said softly. "If we forget, we might repeat it. But we can teach the next generation to do better. We can show them a different way." Do-hyun nodded. "That is why I left the Navy. That is why I came here, to the edge of nowhere, to grow vegetables and build houses. Because that is what the future needs. Not more warriors. More builders." The next day, they walked through the settlement together. It was larger than Yuna remembered. Thousands of people lived here now. Humans and Vectari working side by side. They passed a school where children of both species learned together. The young humans were fascinated by their Vectari classmates. The young Vectari were curious about human culture. They laughed and played and argued, the way children everywhere do. Yuna watched them and felt something warm grow in her chest. This was why she had suffered. This was why she had almost died. For these children who would never know war. For this future that once seemed impossible, a small girl ran up to her. She was maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and bright eyes. Behind her came her friend, a young Victari barely a meter tall, its shell still soft and colorful. "Are you the bridge lady?" The girl asked. "My teacher told us about you. She said you stopped the war." Yuna knelt down to look at the child. "I had a lot of help. Many people worked together to stop the war. Your parents, your teachers, people on both sides who were brave enough to try something new. Were you scared?" "Very scared. All the time." "Then why did you do it?" Yuna thought about the question. She thought about her mother's letter, still kept safe in a box. She thought about her father's songs. She thought about the darkness of the Victari ship and the light that slowly grew. Because being scared does not mean you cannot be brave. Sometimes the most important things are the hardest to do. And sometimes one person can change everything if they believe strongly enough. The little girl nodded seriously. Then she grabbed her Victari friend's arm and ran off, laughing. Doyen put his hand on Yuna's shoulder. "You know, I used to think the most important thing I did was win battles. Destroy enemy ships. Protect human space. Now I know I was wrong. What was the most important thing? Raising you. Teaching you to be kind. Showing you that a good person does not fight for victory. A good person fights for the people who cannot fight for themselves." He paused. "I told you that once. Do you remember?" Yuna smiled. "I remember. You listened. And you became something greater than I ever imagined." They continued walking until they reached a hillside overlooking the entire settlement. From here, they could see everything. The houses, the fields, the schools, the factories. The docking bays where ships came and went. The plaza where tomorrow's anniversary ceremony would be held. The sun was setting again. Another day ending. Another day of peace. "They're calling me back to work tomorrow," Yuna said. "There's a dispute on the border. Some old hardliners causing trouble. It should not be too serious, but they want me there just in case. Will you come back when it is over?" "Always. This is home now. Wherever you are, that is home." Doyen smiled. It was a peaceful smile. The smile of a man who had finally forgiven himself. "Good. The tomatoes will be ready next month. Someone needs to help me eat them all." They sat on the hillside as darkness fell. The stars came out, one by one, filling the sky with light. Each star was a world. Each world was full of people trying to live, trying to love, trying to find meaning in the chaos. Humanity had not survived because it was strong. It had survived because it was stubborn. Because it refused to give up. Because even in the darkest moments, there were people who believed that tomorrow could be better than today. Park Yuna had been one of those people. She had walked into the darkness and come out carrying light. Now that light was spreading. Slowly, imperfectly, but spreading nonetheless. One child at a time. One handshake at a time. One act of courage at a time. She leaned against her father's shoulder, the way she used to when she was a little girl. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For singing to me when I was scared. For teaching me to believe in good things. For never giving up on me, even when you thought I was dead." Daham put his arm around her. "That is what fathers do. We hold on to hope, even when hope seems foolish. Especially then." The stars watched over them. The same stars that had witnessed wars and murders and terrible pain. Now they witnessed something else. A father and daughter, together again, at peace. Somewhere in the settlement below, a child laughed. Somewhere else, a Victari and a human shared a meal. Somewhere far away, on 100 different worlds, people looked at the night sky and dared to dream. Humanity did not survive because it was perfect. Humanity survived because it could change, because it could learn, because it could look at an enemy and choose to see a friend. Park Yuna had come home wearing the enemy's colors. She had made those colors mean something new, and the stars remembered.